Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining another weekly virtual town hall. Today, I have a special guest, and on a special topic today, Kyle Hermans, a wonderful individual, a bright individual. Is going to be touching on a lot of topics, especially around mental health and awareness, and how you can grow yourself from the inside, especially during this time of COVID-19. I've gotten a lot of calls about how stressful this can be, and this scenario is not the easiest thing to kind of go through. So I want to bring in Kyle to bring in a different kind of presentation today, more on wellness and growth, and how to move forward on progressing yourself. So as we kind of let everyone get on board today, we have participants on Zoom as well as Facebook and YouTube joining on. So we'll be starting shortly in a couple minutes, just getting the audience settled in and have everyone register come on. So bear with us a couple minutes for the audience to jump in, and we'll be starting. Okay, looks like we have a majority of people online, and we'll begin now with the introductions and get this presentation going. So again, thank you for joining for another virtual town hall. Today, my guest, and I'm honored to have Kyle Hermans, guides leaders and their organizations to transformative breakthrough and systematic change, having collectively facilitated, advanced, coached, and trained 2,500 plus sessions with the senior leaders of 300 plus Fortune 1000 companies and hundreds more, and startups across multiple countries and industries, generating billions in ROI. He is the co-founder and CEO of Be Courageous, the global digital-first business consultancy, unlocking the breakthroughs necessary in culture, strategy, technology, and innovation to build and transform the world's most ambitious and courageous leaders and brands. It was also very unique, and I hope you touch on this as well, your time in South Africa and your time working with Nelson Mandela during the Rainbow Era, and how transformative that moment was. Of course, everyone, we're going to be starting with the presentation. There's going to be a fire chat halfway through the program, and at the very end, I will take in questions regarding city work, city business, and an update on everything else happening within the city. And with that, Kyle, over to you.
Thank you so much. It's super appreciated. Hope visual and audio is okay. Hello to everybody on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, wherever it's going. Such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much, Haidar. And just remember, we have 60 days. We've got 60 days, and then Haidar's, this is his time. Let's get him into the mayor position. All right, that's super important here. But really honored. And for everybody logging in and watching right now, I just always want to start with, I want to send you a celebration. I want to celebrate you coming to these town halls, coming to these meetings, coming to listen to speakers like myself, coming to listen to updates, shows a sense of proactivity. It shows a sense of commitment to your curiosity, but also to your community. And never take that for granted. It means that you're applying yourself. It means you're wanting to learn. It means that you're curious. And for me personally, the favorite audience that I could possibly have, because it means we really get to have a two-way dialogue here. We will have the chat functioning running. We've got a Q&A functioning running too, I believe, which will be super important for us to be able to interact with each other. I'll probably ask some questions, so please don't be afraid to put some things in the chat box. Like, one of the first things, I'm sure you're all going to give the same answer, but where are you calling in from? That'll be one of the first things I'd love to ask, of you. So I'm going to get straight into a presentation here, because I want to get into and cover off a couple points in the time that I have. So just shifting the screen a little bit for any of you that are on the Zoom call, switch your view to speaker view. This is where you get to see the full effect of the slides that I'm about to show. But one of the big things here is, I've been blessed over the last couple of decades to be working with leaders around the world on courage, and specifically dealing with incredibly stressful and difficult situations. And although beginning of my career really started with concentrating on how can a corporation and organization and the leaders within the organization benefit from the things that we were doing together, now what has happened is that change is necessary on a huge systemic level in our societies, in our communities, all around the world. And so we've started to bring a lot of those mindsets and tool sets and skill sets and practices and mental framings to as many people as we can bring. So I'm so grateful to all of you for logging in on this today. One of the first things is that if you go to any dictionary, if you've got a dictionary right next to you, pull it up. Look for the word courage. And what you'll notice is that it describes courage as a noun, a thing. We think that the dictionaries may have got this wrong because it's not just a noun. It is also a verb, meaning that the concept of courage, and we've built a business around this, be courageous. The concept of courage is about taking action. Courage is an action. It's one of the things that is an antidote to some degree of fear. So all of the world right now is in a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, stress, just even over the last several months has increased almost 80+% inside of societies, communities, even corporations. And what is required for us is to lean so much deeper into our internal sense of courage. What we have to do is lean into and courage our fear, or what we love, and the topic of this talk is to courage the future. So I want to set that up with you first, which is courage as an action, because I'm going to be speaking today about that. Now, the other thing that is a topic of today's discussion is that usually when we think of courage and courageous, and we see it in movies and we see it in books, and we see it around the world, it's all these massive, giant actions that people are taking. And I want to share with you that some of the most massive change that has happened in the world, and one of the things that I could speak to is that I was born and raised in South Africa, born and raised in Cape Town, South Africa. And I was born and raised in the concept of apartheid as a white male. So there were some privileges that I had, but also one of the things that we realized in growing up in a restricted environment was that we couldn't have the friends that we desired to have. We couldn't cross the racial divide to be able to speak to whoever we wanted. It was also for us. I know we had it much better, but one of the things that we had to step up as a young organization and as a young mind and as a young community was to start facing hard systemic changes together to be able to push against it. Now, the more we tried to demonstrate, the more we got pushback. What was very interesting is that it was small acts of calculated courage of us just constantly, like, there's this great metaphor that persistence wears down resistance. Think of how the ocean washes up against rocks and is able to carve out shapes in stone. It's the same thing, that small acts of courage starting today can lead us to a dramatically different future if we lean in any moment that we can. If we see a moment, or if we feel a moment that is currently being dominated by fear, how do we flip that into courage and small acts of courage? When we can band together, we can actually make dramatic change. Because one of the things that's happening right now, and I get to speak at many different organizations about technology, about change, about the speed and rate of change, and how that affects our current system. And there's a really important thing to realize is that today, as we're speaking together here, this is the slowest rate of change you will ever experience again for the rest of your life. Meaning that the change we've been experiencing from last year, year before, and all the changes that are happening this year, it is only going to increase, which means that for us, everything around us, including ourselves, is evolving and changing it at an exponential rate. And what I mean by exponential is 10x, like 10 times faster than we are maybe even designed or built for. So what that means is that there's two things. We have an opportunity to let go of what isn't working anymore and start to lean into what we could start to create and work on that would be better for ourselves and for others, which is why mental wellness, mindset, growth, purpose, these are all important things, especially during times of radical change. The second thing is that we have to start thinking differently about how we manage ourselves on a daily basis, how we manage our mindset, how we manage our actions and our energy, because with change increasing, we're not going to be able to keep up. We're going to have to find a different way to interact with each other and interact with the change we want to make in our personal lives, our professional lives, and within our community. So what we've realized in working with thousands of leaders all around the world is that when we talk and we have daily conversations about the future. So if I had to write in the box here, how do you feel about the future? If you think about the future, what's something that comes up for you? Anybody feeling courageous? Please put that in the chat box. When you think about the future, How does it make you feel? What do you see? What do you experience coming at you right now? What we've realized in working with leaders and organizations is that there's about 4 types of futures, and this isn't a perfect science, but it's 4 types of futures that we've noticed that are ahead of us. And it's up to us, and our mindset will be very different on how we make decisions for our future based on the future we accept. And I want to break it down for you. So the first one here is the future that we chase. Now just think about the energy of what it takes to chase somebody else. When we talk about chase, it means that the world is changing around us. Someone is making some form of a decision and is forging ahead. And the rest of us are trying to catch up with their ideas, with their decisions, with their ways of doing things. That is one particular energy. Now, what we notice is that the more we're chasing after an ever-changing future, the more stress actually starts to increase, not only in our bodies, in our lives, in our organizations, because we're constantly having to keep up with somebody else's race. I personally, for myself, I like doing endurance sports. I like triathlons. And there's always a fundamental rule when you're doing a triathlon. For anybody that's done triathlon, put it in the chat box if you've ever done one. They're pretty cool. They're hard work, but they're pretty cool. Is that if somebody passes you, the goal is to always stay focused on your race. Because when you stay focused on your race, you're staying focused on your plan. As soon as somebody comes past quicker, generally the first instinct of the human being in the human body is to want to keep up with them or to pass them. Like, how dare they pass me? How dare they sort of get ahead? Oh, what's wrong with me? We start to judge our own performance. But what's really interesting is that everybody is kind of operating in a different way. And our own speed and our own pace is equally as important as is somebody else's. So the one that we chase is where we start losing a little perspective of what's important to us and we start chasing after somebody else. Then the second future, super interesting, is the one that we defend. Now, if you in a culture, in a town, in an environment, in a business, which is more heavily legacy based, which is you're very famous for the way that your history is, you're very famous for what has always been, we will find that most of the people making decisions for that type of future, what they're trying to do is really defend what has always been, who they are at the core. And what is interesting about that is it makes it really hard to adapt to change if you're trying to defend a legacy. I'm not saying like let go of legacy. Legacy is important. But a question to ask oneself is always like, what am I defending? Is it actually serving my future? Is it serving me right now? Or is it taking away from my energy? Is it taking away from my happiness? Is it taking away from my mental health? Defense of something often can always be the first act of war as well, which is the war. And I don't mean war about with everybody else. I mean, it's sometimes a war inside of ourselves. Now, with change happening so quickly around us, one of the things that we have to start doing is always questioning, is the thing that we're defending the right thing for the future, the right thing for me, the right thing for my family, my environment, and my society? So that's the second one, the one that we defend. Again, there's no right or wrong here. They're just different. But they also, you can feel the difference. If I say the word chase, there's an energy to that. If I say the word defend, there's an energy to that. The third one is the one you want to improve. That's where we look around us and say, well, that person over there, that organization, this group, these people, they're not doing it well enough. I want to go into that situation and I want to improve that situation. Incredibly noble, incredibly thoughtful. That's how we continue to start to progress. But what's also important just about wanting to improve another situation is the situation we're trying to improve still worth improving? Or should we be rethinking it? Are we actually trying to improve things that are creating a better for the whole or only for a select few? Now, for us, when we're going into rooms to drive innovation, to drive change, to shift mindset, we always have to ask ourselves, is the habit or the system or the situation I'm trying to improve the one that's healthiest for me and others in the future? Again, it's an energy. Looking at the world and knowing that there are things that are necessary to change, super, super important. Now, the fourth one, which I think is the one that we always try to advocate for, and again, no right or wrongs across these, is the one that you want to create. The act of creativity gets us out of a mindset of competition. Some competition is healthy, but what we've learned in business, the old model of business was high performance. You have to suffer to succeed. You've got to compete with everybody. You have to, fight to win. That was an old way of doing things. The new system is around, how do I actually create? How do we co-create? How do we come together to solve challenges that benefit all of us? The future of extreme performance is actually health. It's actually rest. It's all the things that are happening in between the high performance moments of our life. Think of it as a metaphor like this. For anybody that likes watching endurance, I'm going to use references of endurance races, but the Tour de France. I don't know if anybody's ever watched that, but it's a phenomenal feat of of achievement, which is people get onto these bicycles, they ride for, like a month every day, hundreds of miles a day, extreme conditions. Now, what makes one athlete better than the other is the fact that how do they deal with their recovery time? How are they dealing with the hours when they are not in the saddle, not just when they're in it? Because the world is filled with ways for us to push performance, push stress, push ourselves to the extreme, suffer to succeed. It's changing now. It really is changing now. If you want to create new conditions, we have to start creating it from a better place, a place of relaxation, a place of nurturing, a place of community, a place of better communication, a place of health, where your mental health, your physical health, your communication health is actually the place where, when you're building from there, you get better performance in life. So what I wanted to do, those 4 futures, again, neither are right or wrong, but you can feel energetically where they are a little different. This is for you to grow in yourself, for you to grow your mindset. We highly recommend to move towards a place where you are looking at your life on a daily basis saying, what can we create together? Because when we create together, we get to improve past situations. We get to help defend the legacies of what was important, but how it shows up in a new world. And we also get to stop the chasing because we get to create and we get to lead together. But I want to give you 3 keys to how to courage the future. And when we talk courage, we put in the action of courage into your future. And we've touched a couple of them. I'm going to remind you. The first one here, which is really, really important, is about your mindset. Mindset. Sorry, there was something that came through here. Am I the only one wondering if this means... Yes, if you would like to ask any questions, more than happy to answer any of the questions, Joy, please. I know we're giving some information here. We're going to get into some Q&A, but if you've got some thoughts, if you've got some questions about the content, please ask, and we will be responding to that as well. But one of the things that I want to get into here is your mindset. Mindset, super, super important. Your mindset is one of your biggest assets that you have right now. How is your mindset? If I asked you today, how are you feeling? How are you thinking? How is your mind directing your decisions during the day? Your mindset is your biggest asset. And I'm going to show you a slide over here for those of you that can see, is that what's interesting about our mindset is that as human beings, we've been wired, and we do a lot with mental health, with NLP, with psychology in the work that we do, is that we have an external event that generally happens. There's stuff that happens outside of our bodies. And those events pass through our filters, how we perceive them. The filters that we have to distort, to generalize, dismiss, or delete based on how we've been raised, how we think, who we are, how our mind is working, those events, whether they are opportunities, whether they are situations that we can make change together in, pass through our filters, they process inside of our mind. Our mind connects to our internal state, which is how do we feel about what we're thinking. And based on how we think about it and how we feel about it is actually what starts to drive our behavior. And driving our behavior is really important because that is what helps us to respond to the external action. So one of the things here is that what I'd like to also connect back to, I see in the connections over here, is that with Haidar, exemplary leader, somebody who is going out of their way to start to drive change in the community. How do we start to shift the opportunities? How we see the opportunities? How do you, as a community, start to feed to this organization here about what is going on? Where do you need to see change? How, like, what kind of outcome would you prefer to see? And how can we start together to start to perceive the outcome differently? Because what's very important for us, in order to make the shifts we want, we have to question how we think about those situations and what we're willing to step into and change together around those situations. And what I mean by that is our mind. Our mind must reach the destination that we would like to achieve before our life does. It's the way we hold our leaders accountable. It's the way we hold ourselves accountable. But it's also the way that we start to nurture our mindset. Meaning, for anybody in the chat box here, what are some of the most fundamental things in Hawthorne or in the community that you would like to see different? It's one thing to talk about the problems. It's the other thing to say, so here's the problem that I see. Here's the thing I'd like to change and like to create. And here's an idea of what that might look like. That is your mind, not only sticking to the problem, but it's also your mind allowing yourself to imagine an outcome. If we can start to feed that outcome together and start talking about outcomes together and solutions together, the chances are we'll start to rally around them quicker. So the second thing here is our energy. Where are we placing our energy together as a community? How are we showing up to each other? How are you showing up to yourself, especially during COVID? One of the things, because we're all in this together, we've been able to work with a lot of leaders, organizations, communities around what does this situation of COVID really mean to our energy? I know for a lot of us, it's increased stress, it's taken away our energy, but our energy is abundant, meaning we can tap into it when we want to. One of the things that either squashes our energy or increases our energy is our connection with our mindset and our energy. And I'm going to show you something here. Very powerful, but very simple. One of the things is that if we feel that we're in a punishing environment, if our situation that we're in is quite a punishing place, either on ourselves, which a lot of folk are in right now, our mental energy starts to drop, meaning that what we are committed to doing, our thoughts of creativity, our thoughts of wanting to get together with each other, even if it's digitally, and I know we can't do a lot of that in person, the more that we're in a place that is draining our mental energy, the less we will be able to focus on creative outcomes together. The less we actually band together and start working on solutions. The more we're able to support each other, and this is where mental health comes in. If we can get ourselves out of the situations or surround ourselves with better environments or provide ourselves or get the right resources around us, which is something that the community and especially Haidar is really working heavily on, which is how to provide this community with the right resources that we can move up to a more coordinated place. We get to work together on this task together, which is a very, very powerful thing for us to do. Because when we get to work on tasks, we get to work on solutions. And then the third one that's really important here is about taking action. How do we start to take action? What are those challenges that we want to start working on? What are some of those things that you as a community inside of this town hall would love us to start focusing on or start addressing? What are some of those solutions? What action would you like to see happening? Because there's 4 ways that we together can start to approach action together. What's very, very important here is that the 4 types of people that we've noticed when it comes to taking action is there's some folk that just don't see the opportunity that's in front of us. And we keep doing the same thing. We keep talking about the same thing. We keep going over the same ground. We don't see the opportunity for change. We don't even see the need for change. Now, even right now, there is so much need for change. The second is that we see the opportunity, but we don't really do anything about it. Now, what's important here is that for us to make massive change in the world, we have to each do our part. This is why we're talking about small acts of courage. Just like you all feeding back now into the chat box, small acts of courage, sharing what's really on your mind, being vulnerable, being open. But we'd love to ask everybody, what are those solutions or what are those challenges that you would like to see happen or you'd like to see shift? What are the opportunities in Hawthorne that we could work on together? The third types of people are the ones that see the opportunity to solve it. And this is what this forum is for. This is what Haidar is really working towards is what are those opportunities? What are those areas that need to address the most so that we can solve that together? And then the fourth, which is I really think where we're leading this town and together with Haidar as mayor will be able to really lead this together is how do we anticipate the opportunities that are coming at us so we can solve ahead of it together? That allows the town to grow, that allows us to come together stronger as a community. Very, very important. So where can we as a community begin to bring courage to these situations? Where is courage needed? How do we go after this together? What are some of those opportunities that we can lean into? Because what's most important that we've learned from a mental health perspective, from a mindset perspective, from a growth perspective, and even living from a purpose perspective, is the outcome that we all want is going to be directly proportionate to collectively the courage that we are going to take together. It's important to rely on our leaders, and it's important for our leaders to rely on our communities so that we can come together to start to make the change that we really want to see. So with that, I would love to say thank you and for the opportunity to be able to address and speak to all of you and to Haidar. I know we're going to open up some Q&A, and I can see that there's some strong conversations going on, which are probably important to address and that we can get into and have conversations about what's happening. We'd love to be a resource to everybody here and be able to dig into the things that are going on. What we've also done over here is there's a link over here for some extra bonus resources for everybody that if you would like, there's some resources for you to work on personal state. There's some resources for working on leadership. There's resources to be able to work on things to solve for in life and also for some mental health. So thank you so much again, Haidar. Awesome to be able to speak to this community, and love to be able to open it up to Q&A and to open up to our fireside as well.
Let's see. Michael, again, I mean, Kyle, thank you for all this informative information. And you're hitting on a lot of key topics here, especially when it comes to around mental health and individuals losing their jobs and looking for an outlet to kind of rebuild themselves. This is the reason why I want this conversation to lead off this town hall. And, you know, resident did bring up a very good question here on the Facebook side, as well as on the Zoom side, are there additional resources, you know, besides contacting yourself, how can individuals kind of go about transforming themselves into acquiring maybe that different position or going through that struggle?
It's a great question. You know, I want to put something out there to everybody. I don't know one person, including myself, that wasn't heavily affected by COVID. Most of our community, including us, we had to pivot business. We pretty much lost everything early in the year, and we had to rethink. We had to rethink of how to build. We're all dealing with some crazy things. There's been loss of job. There's been loss of work. There's been loss of health. Some folk that we know have, you know, had the COVID. Others are trying very best not to. We've all had, for anyone with kids on this call, we've all had to become additional teachers. We have to homeschool. We have to manage all these crazy environments. The amount of pressure and stress that's on us is unimaginable. But one of the things is that you've made it through how many months so far? You have to take acknowledgement that even though we may not have figured everything out, and even for us personally, even in our personal lives, we still have a lot of changes that we have to go through. We are facing them together. And the way that if we're not getting the resources from where we expect them to come from, this is where we have to tap into a level of self-reliance and courage. We really do. This is the idea of determination. This is the idea of resilience. It's so easy to say it right here in these words. It's harder to do. But what is incredibly important is we have to move from a place of being at the effect of the situation in how can we step into causality. And what I mean by cause is, how can I cause the outcome that I want? It does require us to sort of get up, dust ourselves off and go, okay, maybe some of the resources that I want, that I'm expecting to come from a certain place, are not going to come from there. I have to start to create a different path. I have to start to look for a different system. What's starting to open up for us is there anybody here that's learned anything new? You've gone out and learned anything new in the last 4 to 5 months. I'd love to see it, whether it's on Facebook, in the chat, here in the chat. Any new skill. Have you been forced into any situation where you've had to go out and figure something out that you didn't have the skill before? If anybody answers yes, what was that thing you learned? Because what you will realize is that micro moment of courage, that small act of courage, I'm going to figure this out, is actually the key to being able to unlock the bigger things that we want. We've got to lean into it, but doing it alone is one of the hardest things for us to do. It's the hardest thing for us to do, which is why Haidar is doing this. He's bringing this community together so we can have an honest conversation. Here are the problems I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm not getting. Here's what I need. How can we help? Is there anybody else here? Is there any other kind of resource? Is there any book? Is there any place I can go? The only way we're going to get through this together, if the resources aren't coming from where we expected, is we have to go out and create them for ourselves. It's the only way. We have to go out and create. But here's the beautiful thing. You as a human being are a creative machine. When we're under stress, you saw in the chart, our creativity dwindles down and we start focusing on the things that we are most afraid of. What we have to do is challenge our fear with courage. We've got to lean into it and say, okay, this is a fearful, I can't quite see the outcome yet. But if I break it down into smaller bite sizes of courageous steps, what's the first thing I could do today? What's the first resource? Who could I call? Who could I ask? That starts to compound as small acts of courage that build into really big outcomes. I'll pause there. I hope that's helpful, but this is incredibly important for us to lean in. Hey, no, what else is coming through? I hope that helps.
Actually, it did, and that conversation kind of started a few other questions coming in and some points. We do have a lot of everyone saying this is amazing information. This is needed with everything going on. With much love. We have a resident here by Veronica Orozco Gutierrez. Said when you asked about have they learned something new recently or struggled with anything, mentioned that as a high school teacher, I had to figure out technology. And
Right.
What's unique about that is because of COVID, you see this entire shift from our normal kind of way we've been doing business to now this whole digital age, Zoom and having everything distance learning. So maybe you can touch on that kind of growth in that environment. How can we shift ourselves from how we once were, being in close contact, to now still getting that growth, but through a Zoom setting?
It's a great question. I just was on a couple of keynotes this past week about the future of education and how do we support our children through this time, because they're realizing even in education, I'm sure if the teachers on here, bless your hearts for doing such a powerful job in such a difficult situation. But what's interesting is that how do we inspire our kids is a great signal, and how we are role modeling and how we're showing up for our kids and how we're showing up to our home environments is the way that we start to role model ourselves for everywhere else. And technology, which is kind of interesting, as much as we're in this insane pandemic, we're also at one of the most unprecedented, abundant moments as human species, which is that technology is getting more cost effective because the speed and the power and what technology can do is increasing. And because it's increasing, all the past technologies are becoming more cost effective. Because they're becoming more cost effective, people that before couldn't afford them, or communities that couldn't afford them, are starting to get access to technology. We can get online, we can get access to tech, we can get access to learning, we can get access to search engines, we can start getting to get access, which means that the playing fields get to start getting leveled, because we all can become lifelong learners, but we have to lean into it. That's the courageous step. It's super hard. We've all had to do it. It's like, oh my goodness, we studied a certain way, we followed a career path, this was the path to success, these were the steps, this is how everything worked. It's all like bowling. It's all just been smashed down. What it's proving to us is that there isn't only one way to get the things we want to get. But what we have to start doing is searching for the other way, because I tell you, very few people have the ultimate answer of exactly what to do. Everybody's figuring it out. The ones that are winning are the ones that are leaning into the courage to figure it out. So for the teacher that just said they had to figure it out, I celebrate you. For everybody here saying they're figuring it out, that they're leaning into these difficult moments and trying and experimenting, is actually the way we do it. And there was something I want to address just here in the chat box as well, is that somebody said I'm lost. And I want to just double check on the context of it. Is that being lost personally, or is that just lost in this conversation? Because what's important is the idea of being lost. I want to give a framing here, because I want to be very careful about how we address things that when we're in a difficult situation, it isn't easy, and we need to support each other. We have to be able to find people around us that we can lean on and that we can have our nurturing conversations so we can talk these things out. Exactly what Haidar is creating right here. So we can talk it out. Because when we get to talk it out, we get to realize we're not alone. When we get to realize we're not alone, there's hope. When there's hope, suddenly creativity starts to come in. When creativity starts to come in, we start experimenting. With experimenting, we sometimes fail, we sometimes win. We get a solution. We get a solution, it gives us confidence to try again. So important. But for anybody that's feeling a sense of loss, I'd like for you to reframe your mind for a second and ask yourself, I'm feeling lost because the way things were are gone, and I just don't know how to do the new stuff yet. Or if that's the case, what an opportunity. And this is going to be a hard one to maybe digest, but it's an important one to write down for yourself. If we're feeling lost, there's in some way an opportunity in that. The opportunity is maybe the thing that we've lost needed to go because it wasn't the most efficient thing for us, or it wasn't the system that we needed. It wasn't the career we wanted. It wasn't the job we were actually passionate about. It wasn't the relationship we loved. It wasn't the community that we wanted to felt deeply a part of. There's that side of it. Or if we're feeling lost, how can we start leaning in to create more connection, more vitality, more purpose, more communication between us? I think this opportunity right now is a way for us to come together, challenge our leaders, but also to be able to challenge ourselves to work on things together better. Haidar?
And I'm seeing here through the chat box, and I want to touch on Veronica's comment real quick and then to the question. She mentions that I try to convey hope to my students by having them think of something positive every morning before starting her lesson. I think this really helps students forget some immediate problems. And why it's such an important comment to me is a few weeks ago, I had the superintendents of the schools on this town hall. And a lot of the students and a lot of parents mentioned to me, made the comment, which was very surprising to me, that when it comes to guidance counselors, especially not just on the academic side, but more on the mental health side, it was very limited to where you had 500 students to one guidance counselor.
Right.
It's very alarming because you have a lot of these students struggling. It's not easy, especially when you're going through high school. Like, of course, we remember those days. It's not most enjoyable, like, yes, freshman year, I'm going into high school. No, we're shaking. Like, oh no.
Who am I? Where do I belong? What do I do? What are my parents gonna say? Is the shirt cool?
kind of addressing that. I know there's a lot of young individuals, especially here watching on Instagram and Facebook. How would you kind of recommend to them, especially from the comment Veronica made, about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. The very first thing I'm going to say is you have to take the pressure off yourself. We have to take the pressure off ourselves. We're under such extreme conditions right now. And the last thing we want to do is compound ourselves with more pressure. Have to figure it out. We've got to make this work. I have to achieve. I have to perform. I got to get it right. Those are the things that start to really hurt our minds in the long run. It may help us in the short term for motivation, but in the long run, what's that actually doing to us as a human being? The system has shifted. I think it shifted just like everybody needed to take a breather. Nature needed to take a breather. Businesses need to be relooked at. The Band-Aid is being pulled off. We are looking at every single part of our society and saying, is this the most efficient way? Is this the right way? Do we have the right people making the decisions for us? Are we making the right decisions for ourselves? Are we going after the right things? That was always the pressure. Go, 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 build, 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 be successful, be powerful, get the career, get the next step, keep moving. I would say the very first thing to do is take a breath, take a pause. Do not put the pressure on yourself to have to get it right in the next couple seconds. This opportunity right now is, I personally think, for rejuvenation. It's for healing. It's for resetting. It's for health and vitality. It's the point where it's what we call active recovery. We have to go through the recovery process in order to have the energy built up to lean into the next thing. The way we recover is we got to shift the conversation. We got to shift where we're putting our energy. We have to shift where we're putting our attention. Yes, Mia, gratitude helps. Gratitude puts us into an abundant mindset versus a scarcity mindset. Scarcity mindset is looking at the world and saying, there's not enough for me. There's no way this will ever work out. Everything is dangerous. Everything is scary. Everything is fearful. And there's so much of that, unfortunately, going on. Abundance, and it's a tactic. I'm telling you, it's a tactic. For us, we've got to lean harder into that and say that the abundant mindset is that there is a solution here waiting to be found. If we can find the solution, there is enough for everybody. If we can work on this together, there's enough. Competition is one of the things that actually locks in a scarcity mindset. It means that there's not enough to go around. I have to compete with that person to get their resources because there isn't enough. That's scarcity. Abundant means if there isn't it, how do I create it? How do I make it? We work with some incredible communities in some really countries that are just in the poorest conditions. And what they've figured out when they put their minds to it about how to educate with very little resources, no electricity, no water, no textbooks. You know, there was a group that recently found some old textbooks from the 90s, and they got a company to come in. What they did get access to was old mobile phones that were donated because the iPhone 8 is so out of date for us. We had to move, on to the next tech. But for somebody else, the iPhone 8 is something that can put a rocket in space. And what's so interesting is that they created an AR or VR or artificial reality or virtual reality process where somebody in India created a system where you hold the phone over the textbook. And what it did is it turned the textbook into a three-dimensional learning process. And so people it's incredible. I'll send you the link. What's super interesting here is that they're in these brick buildings with no chairs, sitting on the floor with textbooks, with phones, looking at the latest information and learning. And when they were learning, they were able to figure out how to get themselves out of those situations. Now, I'm using that as an example. It's extreme, but it's old and new. It's poverty and abundance, all coming together to say, if we work hard together to find the solution, if we work hard together to create the next thing that will help all of us, we will find it together. If we put the brakes on and say, I don't see the solution, wrong leaders, wrong conversations, wrong, we keep attracting more of the same to us. But if we can flip it and say, I'm open to finding the solution, I'm open to creating what I want, and doing it with not a lot of pressure on ourselves, but doing it more in a community kind of way, we will be able to find that future together. Haidar, I'll hand it back to you.
You're absolutely right. And it's very interesting to hear that 3D kind of tech to really reinvent education. I mean, that's astounding, especially for, they're able to access so much with so little. And we have to kind of we have to be cognizant of that because we do tend to waste a lot. And we don't tend to see where we are compared to, the rest of the world. And being cognizant and showing gratitude, I think is the best form of really shifting your mental environment and getting through this hardship of, being down the dumps. You think, oh, the world's over, it's done, it's over, and then nothing's going my way. But when you look outside yourself and see what other people are doing with less, you start to feel more grateful for the fact that you're still breathing and you're able to still go and get a job and things like that.
We're alive.
Right.
We're here on this call. We're the lucky ones right now for anybody watching here. We're super lucky.
I have another, some actually very good questions. I have here that so many people and residents are just struggling to survive and pay their bills to provide the next meal on the table.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for them to recover from where they are feeling like they are just surviving, and how they can move their mindset to help them thrive?
It's such a powerful question, and it is such a hard situation to be in. One of the things that's really important is what we did for ourselves early in the year when we found ourselves in very difficult both business and financial and family-based situations and we're lucky because we get to practice these skills on a daily basis. It actually goes back to something Mia said earlier, which is that we did start practicing a level of gratitude, which is we looked around us and said, There was a quote that I once heard. This might be a little intense, but it worked for my mind, which was exactly where we are is exactly where we are meant to be. And what that meant is that if we in the moment and we say, okay, this is the situation, but right now I have my hands, I have my mind, I have my family. They're all healthy. I have some food, I get to feed my family. I have motivation, I have a place to rest, I have a place to sleep, I've got a place to recharge, I may have a community of some friends around me. The things that I have to do is let go a little bit of ego, which is to say, I'm only good enough for this situation, I'm only good enough for that situation. In situations of dire change, and we experienced this back in South Africa many, many years ago, working with communities that really didn't have a lot and were just for decades put under very extreme conditions, was the reason how so much dramatic change happened is that they always noticed what they had in that moment, in that day. And they started from there and they say, what's the little bit more, that small act, we call them micro acts or small acts of courage. What's that little bit more that I could got? Who's the person I could call? What's the door I could knock on and say, is there a possibility for me to work here right now? Is there a skill that you have that you could put out there and say, I'm available to work for this. I'm available to do these particular types of jobs. None of it may be permanent, but it's what's necessary in the moment for us to get to where we want to get to. Ego and maybe the old way of doing things has blocked us so much that sometimes we will see certain opportunities around us, which are really gifts and could be the start of something new. We may say no to them because our, how do I say this? But it's like our ego won't even let us go there because we were used to a certain way of living and we don't really want to let that go and we can't fully accept what is happening right now. What we've learned is the quicker we can accept that this is the reality, the quicker the mind starts to give you new solutions to think of. Because I tell you one thing about life, as hard as it is, and everybody has been through incredibly difficult things on this call. I cannot even imagine what all of our lives are like. If we got together to have a conversation in person, we really spend a few days learning about each other. But the thing is that you've been able to get through every difficult day so far. Imagine the worst day you've ever had in your life, you got through it. And you got through it because you were holding a picture of where you'd rather be. You were holding to the power that you have inside of you right now. You were holding on to that you wanted to fix or solve the situation. And what you probably did is you leaned into it with humility, meaning like, I'm going to do whatever it takes in this moment just to get through this moment and start building again. And for anybody that is still in a position where you've lost something, where you are struggling, is that I send you as much love and blessings as I can. That's the first really important thing. You're not alone. The second thing is that you have so much power inside of you to find the answer. You have so much power. Take the small act, make that call, answer the ad, do it 100 times a day. Because what's interesting is that when we put our energy towards what we want, we start to attract those things to us. It's the best piece of advice that I can give. It's really just about persistence wears down resistance. Those that stay in a difficult situation are often the ones that let the fear of the situation dominate them. They also forget that inside of them, they have power to go and make a change. The ones that start to get out of the situations are the ones that never quit believing that they can create something better for themselves. And I think if we band together, just think of what we could create together. Haidar, I'll hand it back to you.
That was very informative. And I love the messaging around it. And I know it's going to help a lot of people come out of that mental block they tend to be facing, especially now. I have another wonderful question here.
It's true. Oh, wow. It's a great one from me here too.
Right. There is one where from Lisa Agakoli that she agrees we are in a time when we have to rely more on our own ability to survive and succeed. And I tend to see that quite a bit, that individuals are hesitant and fearful from relying on themselves and taking that chance on powering through with their own abilities, and then kind of having to latch onto someone's coattail or latch onto someone else just to thrive. How would you go about kind of addressing that and recommending someone disconnect from that kind of mindset?
It's a great question. There's two things to that. Proximity to where you want to be can be power. It can also be misleading. What I mean by that is that if the person or the situation that you're around is toxic, that's unfortunately going to bleed into your life. There's no way we can get around that. No matter how hard we try, some of that will influence us. Now, there's a thing though, is that there's an interesting quote that says, we are who we spend, like we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. I don't know if 5 is the right number, but it's like we are who we spend our time with. So what's interesting for us is that for everybody here is create proximity. Write down who your closest 5 to 10 people are that you spend the most time with. Kids are included, but I mean, kids are cool. But think about people that you listen to, people that you get information from, people that you get facts from, things you read, people that nurture your spirit, your health, your vitality. Write that down and start to ask yourself, and you have to be very honest with yourself, and you can do this privately, but you can ask yourself, are they nurturing you? Are they helping you? Or are they hindering you? Is the words that is it lifting you up, or is it bringing you down? Is it empowering you to go out and do important things for yourself and your family? Or is it saying, don't bother with that? Because what's important is when we are looking to create change, who we spend our time with and the environment we create around us is very, very, very important. Because I'll put something up here, is that I've got some cards that are pulled out because I was like, there's so many good questions here. This idea of clarity. Do you have clarity on you? Do you have clarity on what's important to you in life right now? Because the clarity piece is what's going to help inform so many more of these decisions. If we're unclear, we will kind of grab onto things. Sometimes we grab onto unhealthy things and unhealthy habits. Those are all changeable. But having clarity, I know I want to be a good citizen. I know I want to, get a great job and work really hard and live out what I'm passionate about, live out my skills. I know I want to be a good role model to my kids, if you've got kids, or I want to be just a good human being. Those are clarity things. I'd like to make a change here. I'd like to advance. I'd like to learn something new. I'd like to get a house. Whatever your ambitions are, whatever you're clear about, spend time in environments that are nurturing that. And even if you don't have access to those resources right now, hold clear what it is that you want to achieve and be around people, even if they don't have the same things right now or are fully where they want to be in life. Get together and celebrate the fact that you're dreaming about these things together. Motivate each other. What did you do today to go closer to that thing? What did you do today to optimize your learning? Did you read something today? Did you work on something today? Did you have a conversation? Did you come to a town hall with Haidar and listen to some person, yelling at you through the screen about there's a way forward? Like, those kinds of things make a difference. It helps you to get clear about what's important to you. It's super important about what gets important to you. I hope that helps. I hope that helps, because when you get clear, I want to show you one other thing here. When you get clear, this is what starts to increase. Your energy starts to shift. And what I mean by that is that your personal energy, your mental energy, the vibrancy that you have for life, for wanting to try, the courage starts to increase. Your necessity to get the thing that you need starts to increase. When the necessity increases, we start getting smarter about how we get productive, on how we use our time. But it starts from clarity. If we're unclear, we'll be floating around, and then anything could come and get into our minds and knock us off of a track. Let me pause there and hand it back to Haidar.
That was actually wonderful. I love the little postcards of clarity.
Yeah, I got them ready. I got them ready just in case.
Came prepared. Let's see, I have another question here. I think it's wonderful. Let's see here. From Romeo Gomez, saying that I think this new era we live in is forced us to not be stale and not to adapt. Do you kind of agree on that idea of I'm trying to actually understand that the new era we live in is
I get it. I think I get what he's asking. Like there's so yes, if I got it right, what was the name? I missed the name.
Romero.
Romario, thank you for the question. These are all such amazing questions. Thank you. Thank you for thank you for participating. I'm getting so fired up and the energy is so
I
good
can
here.
feel
I
it.
really am. I'm like, yes, community. Romario, yes, it is stale. It is stale. It's been so overdone. The only way forward is to adapt. I think that's what this entire thing is about. If we look at it through a positive lens, and it's so hard to do. I know it's hard to do. I'm sure there's going to be comments in here like, yes, but it's hard to do, but it is stale. The reason why is the speed of change that we are experiencing right now. What's happening in our life? The system that has been designed for decades and decades cannot support the rate of change we are now experiencing. What we're trying to do is slow down change, force our way back to an old way of doing things. It's all stale. The reason why there is no going back. There is no going back. Even if, there's the concept of going back is done. What are we going back to? Was everybody winning? Was there great equality? Was there great freedom to be who we wanted to be? Were we living our best expressions of ourselves? I don't think so. I don't think I've heard anybody bar just a very select few that have said the old system was great. It was great because not all ships were rising together. That's an old stale system. The adaptability that we need now is to work together to create a different system, to deal with the rate of change. The rate of change is coming so that it breaks us out of this it kind of pulls the wool off our eyes, it shakes us up and says, you have to step out now and take charge. You've got to get out there and go and do this. You have to step into your courage. It's hard. No one's going to come and save us. No one's going to come in here and fix it for us. Maybe. I don't think so. I think the one that is you. It's inside of you, which is the thing you want is get clear on what you want, get clear on the energy you want to live into, get clear on who you want to be, get clear on what you want for yourself and the people around you, and then just be relentless every day. What's the thing I've got to do to go and get that? Select leaders like Haidar into positions where they can get hands on the resources to be able to bring the community together more like this so you can make the change. You have so much power behind you. You've got power in your choice. You've got power in your thinking. You've got power in your actions. You've got power in your decision making. You've got power because you're alive, because you can get up and make decisions. When we tap into that power, we get to start creating something different for ourselves. If we wait for somebody else to do it, remember that future? We're chasing someone else. We're exhausting ourselves off of someone else's situation. Create what you want. And of course, it's going to take time, but micro acts of courage, starting today, create a very different outcome than doing nothing today. Get what I'm saying? If we do nothing today and tomorrow, how did that help our outcome? If we complain today and tomorrow, how did it help our outcome? If we blame someone else today and tomorrow, how did it help our outcome? If we create today, tomorrow, if we do a little courageous thing today, tomorrow, you feel the energy shift? That starts to change our outcome.
Actually, that actually did hit it. That actually answers his question quite well, and he's very excited on the. He's feeling the energy too, and the shift as well. So it's great.
Good. We shift together. We elevate together. This is what this is about. Self-love. I see somebody talk about self-love. Absolutely important.
Right. There's self-love. There's also another one here from Stacy Elliott. Thank you for joining today as well. Mentions it's a time of pivot and adapt to new ways and make our own way and form an alliance to make change.
Yes.
And like you said, proximity and who you're around with, and as you're surrounding yourself with good energy and a higher mindset, you'll tend to grow that way as well. What was the old saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room?
You're probably in the wrong room. That's right. I love that one.
Right. There's another one here from Marina Soto. I am from him. What?
Wow, these are such great questions and comments and feedback. Thank you for everybody for participating and for bringing your courage and your vulnerability to this conversation. So important.
There's, here it is. How can each person help themselves start to see results in their own lives And how do you think cities and municipalities like Hawthorne can better support our residents, especially when it comes to providing resources of self-growth and mental health?
Hadar, I'm gonna come at
Wow.
you with this one. I hope that's okay. I hope that's okay. The most important way is that leadership is a responsibility. Leadership is a responsibility for anybody that puts their hand up and says, I want to lead. I want to be in a position to lead. I want to be in a position. What they're really doing is they're stepping into a form of representation. They're stepping into a place where it's saying, I have not just my own, but I have other people's best interests at heart. I have an empathy and a way to connect to what the community is asking from. I can feel what my environment needs, and it's my responsibility to make that happen. So when you ask the question about about municipalities and leaders, hold them accountable. I know this might be a strange example, but I watched something today, a really great thought-provoking outpouring from Ice Cube, who I really adore. But he was like, hold your system accountable. You're allowed. You're allowed. It's your right. Call them up. Hold them accountable. Pound on that door. Don't give up. The only reason why things don't happen is because people just stop holding people accountable. It's like, oh, that takes a lot of effort. Oh, I've called them 10 times, 20 times. Call them 30 times. Hold them accountable. Say you need these things. Show up at the meetings. It's tough because not everybody's always going to do the right thing. Even all the people in leadership positions are people. They're humans. They got to eat, they got to sleep, they got families, they've got desires, they've got themselves to a place. But responsibility is important. To responsibility, you would hope that a leader in a responsible position would have their health in check, would have their sleep in check, would have their nutrition in check, would have their mental health in check. But not everybody does. Not everybody does. So how can they make the best decisions? If a leader's energy is running low and they're out of sync with themselves, how on earth could they even be present for everybody else? So the only way we get to do that is by holding them accountable. We got to lean in. And if they're not holding accountable, we have to self-assemble. We have to self-assemble. Got to get together, form your pods, form your tribes, come to town halls like this, get communities, call your neighbor. Are you happy with the way things are going? No. Should we get together and have a conversation? Yes. Is anybody else here not happy? These 5. Let's get together. Let's talk about it. Let's write an article, publish a post, paste and copy everybody on it that we want to. Send them emails every single day. Call in rotation. We need these things. You're not doing your job correctly. We put you in a position. If they're not in the right position, you get to vote. You get to make the change. So accountability is important, but it does start with us. And one of the things is that nobody likes change. But right now, that's the only thing that's consistent. But nobody likes it. No one wakes up every day and goes, oh, we're changing again. Fantastic. Yay, let's disrupt the system. Very few people wake up that way. They're like, oh, finally, I've got it in a pattern. I've got a habit. I can do the same thing every day. I get to just practice the things I'm familiar with. We have to keep challenging the system because we all have to grow. We all have to elevate. So the one thing I would say to you is mobilize, start holding them accountable, get clear about what you want to ask for, get clear about what you need, get clear if there's anything you can do to contribute to the solution, and then hold your leaders accountable and appoint the right people into the position so that they will have a better proximity to hold the rest accountable so they know what to do with those resources. Haidar, I hand it back to you. I hope that helps.
But it does put me on the spot.
But we know you can do it. Everybody said it. Somebody in the very early comments was like, you're a hard worker. You're the right person for the position. It's like, this is important. You've got this. They're saying it. You've got this. Indeed, you've got this. So, but you're not alone, right? You don't have to be alone. Right. You got your community behind you.
And that's what kind of gives you the push too, is that energy and that, it goes back to energy. Just having that energy and that feel of it shifting in the positive direction gives you, like you said, the clarity. Having that clarity will lead to more focused energy to kind of thrive through.
And it needs this from you.
Necessity. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Needs
I
this.
wonder,
It
I
needs
wonder how
this
many
from the
cards
boot.
you have in there.
I only got a couple. My last one is was my favorite one, which is courage. But we can say the one. But the necessity is important. You know, necessity is like, I felt it necessary to be my best self today. I felt it necessary to bring my A game. I felt it necessary to represent today. I felt it necessary to be a role model. I felt it necessary to step in and show up. Necessity we have to work on. You just don't wake up with it. It's something we have to work on. And when it gets hard, it's one of the first things to go. So we have to keep pushing. You know, we have to keep pushing.
There's another question here. And we're almost don't want to take up too much more of your time, but there's a lot of good questions coming in.
Please keep going. I'm yours. I'm here for all of you as long as this is helpful.
Wonderful. Oh, that's actually great to hear. There's a lot. Okay, here it is. A lot is happening around us right now. Almost seems apocalyptic. With the fires, Black Lives Matter, COVID, suffering through loss of jobs. What can we do to navigate during these trying times? And kind of touching on all those, all the previous cards you brought up, leading into courage.
It's the way we're framing it right now is what we got to do is courage the future. Courage the future. But it has to just think of all that list that person just mentioned. Just like if you even pause for a second and just feel the fires. Black Lives Matter, systemic change, COVID, elections. Like it's like, you know, it's so intense. It's so hard to take in breath. It's so hard to feel light. it's hard. Our biggest thing right now is that I think the pace and the way that we were building our system was incorrect. I think we've got a massive check from nature. I think we've got a massive check from Earth. I really do. I mean, our systems are all connected. If anybody likes watching National Geographic, watch any programs around the Amazon rainforests. Just watch that, because what that will teach you by watching that, and I know it's a weird thing to say, but when you watch that, you realize that that place on Earth is responsible for about 50 different systems that run our planet, in the oceans, on mountaintops, the way we breathe. So what's interesting here is it's a metaphor for what's really going on. A piece of our system is shifting. So what that does, if you think of cogs in a wheel, one piece of the system shifts, it starts to shift all the other cogs in the wheel. They all start to turn. What's happening is it's all turning. I think this is just the beginning. I'm not saying there's going to be like 50 more pandemics. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but it's what I mean is that I think one thing's going to lead to the next. It's going to unlock the next. It's going to unlock the next. It's going to unlock. We have so much change we got to get through, and there's so much that's going to disrupt us. So the thing to ask is, how do we deal with this? For me personally, I wake up every day and say, are the things that I'm desiring and craving for the right reasons? That's one. Are the things that I wish were back to the way they were, are those actually helpful for my future and for other people's future? Was that the right stuff? Was that the right system? Was that the right way to live? For anyone on this call here, or anyone in the chat box, how much of your household over the last several months have you just realized you didn't need? The things that are around you, the stuff that we keep, the stuff we collect, the stuff we buy. How much of it wasn't really necessary? How much of it isn't as necessary anymore? I'm really curious, because I see 60%. I think for our house, it's a lot. We started to sell things off. We just started to sell it. We didn't need it. Somebody else needed it, but we didn't. So I think what is happening is people are saying, yes, a lot, 60%. It's clearing things out. It's clearing it out so that you can get the clarity to think of what it is that you want next. That's a gift. Usually we go like, oh my God, I lost everything. What do I do now? When I think what's really going on is saying, all the things that are necessary are being removed so you can get clear on what you really want. And yes, it's starting again. Yes, it's starting from the beginning in some cases. Yes, it's rethinking. But honestly, that's really not a big problem. I mean, hey, here's a box of crayons and a page, create something. You know, that's the gift right now. It's scary because we have responsibilities and we have bills and we've got mortgages and we've got kids and all those kinds of things. But none of us are in this alone. We're all dealing with something similar. We're not in an isolated there's not only one person dealing with this, we're all dealing with it. So the way I approach it, it's the best advice that I can give is from my own perspective. I mean, I get to spend a lot of time with really interesting human beings, and they're all saying something similar, which is something is happening right now to clear out what is unnecessary, to make space for what you can create that is now necessary for you, for your next step. That puts the responsibility on you, but that also puts an opportunity for you to lean into the next step in a courageous way. Haidar, I'll hand it back to you.
I'm also looking at the, we have a lot of people jumping in from Instagram as well with some good questions.
Great.
Finally got that to actually work.
Thank you, everybody.
Let's see. Let me actually get this one question first. There are often times that I feel like I'm drowning. I have kids, worried about losing my job, and money issues are always hovering. What can I tell myself moment by moment, day to day, to step towards the right direction and to stay above water?
This is going to sound a little interesting and Buddhist. It actually comes from some work that I love of a fascinating woman. And this is something for everybody to write down and look at. Her name is Byron Katie, Byron, and Katie is her name. She has a website called thework.com. Interesting lady. Her purpose in life is to free the world from stressful thinking. She believes a lot of what the stress that we create in our lives is because we believe in movies in our head that haven't existed yet. We're actually creating problems before problems show up. So when we worry about losing something that we haven't lost yet, we actually start to magnetize the loss to us. And so is the thing we actually worrying about true? Are you going to lose the job? Have you lost it in this moment? No. Okay, great. So why worry about something that hasn't happened yet? How do we actually show up to work and every day and go like, how can I create this environment to be healthy, stress-free, will help my coworkers step into this environment? I guarantee you that's not going to help you lose your job. That'll help you keep it. It's you know, like when we put accents on the things, but again, it's an easy thing for me to just rattle it off. We have been trained and programmed through our whole lives to lead with fear versus leading with abundance and positivity. We have to retrain our minds to lead with positivity. Fear is a much easier thing to get to because it's things that we tangibly see. In psychology, fear is about the past. Anxiety is about the future. Fear shows up because what we're doing is that we might be experiencing similar situations to something that happened in our past. And what we start to do is go, oh, pattern recognition, the same thing's about to happen. So we bring that past situation, we project it into the future before it's even happened. We put the fear into a situation that doesn't even need fear because there's nothing to fear right now. We create the fear about something that hasn't happened. We create the story, we start to believe the story, we believe the story, and then we start to manifest the story. The way to break it is to go like, oh, wow, how grateful, I have a job. I'm going to give 100% of my day today. I'm going to show up and be there for my colleague. I am stoked. I am fired up. You know, I've got some food. I can spend more time with my kids. I can be more present with whatever those things are, because fear will come and haunt us. Ooh, but what about this? Ooh, but you're not thinking about this. You better pay attention to this. What if you lose this? It can be so debilitating. We have to go like, oh, not today, thank you, because it's not true. Is it true in this moment? No, in this moment, it's not true. What's true in this moment? What's true for you in this moment? Just write it down. What's true for me right now? For those of you that have a job, I got my job. Got my kids, I got my house, got my health. I can feed my family. Focus on that. That's what you can do. Anxiety is worrying about what's going to happen. And when you worry about the future, we start to magnetize the thing we worried about to ourselves. So what you can start to really worry about is start to worry about how amazing the future is going to be for you and how abundant everything's going to be and how healthy you're going to be. And Imagine those kinds of things, you know, because it's much easier to go to the places that we're familiar with that are painful and difficult than it is to go to positive spaces. So I know it's a big meta response. It does come down to what you eat, how much you sleep. Are you drinking enough water? Are you around people that are feeding your mind with healthy thoughts? Do you have a support system? Do you have leaders in office right now that you can rely on and that will respond to you and create environments and spaces for you to lean on? Those things are important. Try get 7 hours of sleep a night. Drink half a gallon of water a day. Make smart choices about your diet. I know it sounds funny, but it makes a massive difference. That's a courageous, small, courageous micro change you can make in your life. When we're feeling depressed or we're feeling rough, I'll grab the pizza, I'll grab the crisps, I'll grab the soda, I'll grab the stuff, I'll grab the sugar, I'll grab the cookies. It's not helpful for us. I'll eat late, I'll binge watch a TV program, keep worrying about the stuff. That's not conducive. That's not going to stack in the right way. We have to break these things down and get ourselves, our body, our mind, and our environment into exercise, exactly, health, exercise, move. Those are very important things. When you get there, you start to make decisions with better clarity. Let me hand it back to you, Haidar. I hope that helps.
You know, I have to admit the diet part is going to be one of the biggest challenges. I know I've sat down during a stressful moment and scarfed down. Oh, I've lost count of how many cookies.
Put them out of sight. Put them out of sight. Like,
oh, it's so no, I can't. Yeah, I have to.
Carrots, something, I don't know, water. I have this. I'll show you something. Like, I carry this thing around with me. It's a half a gallon of water, and I try to drink 2 of these every day.
You know, that would actually be helpful to have, and it keeps it cool.
It does. And when you have it, it's so heavy and it's so present. It's like, and you put it right in front of you. You know, there's a great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Highly recommend everybody get that. James Clear, Atomic Habits. One of the tips they say is that if you want to break a habit, break an old pattern and get a new one, you have to put the thing that you keep leaning on, you got to get it out of sight. You got to get it out of sight. And then what you do is he has an example, which is interesting. He worked with a corporation that were suffering from too much soda and some obesity and unhealthiness in the environment in their cafeteria. So what they did is they took out all the soda machines, and what they did is on the table, they just put big buckets like those containers of water bottles. And what happened is it took a week or two and people were still trying to find the vending machines. And then eventually someone took a water. And then within a couple of months, the entire culture shifted to only drinking water.
Wow.
Because they were able to take the thing that we keep falling into the victim of our habit on, they moved it away, and then they put something else in its place. So if we want to break habits, and I'll admit, I'm trying to put things like, I've got some snack baskets up here, honestly, in our office, and I've only put healthy things in there. And I've cleared out my carbs and I've cleared out all this stuff because I know that as soon as I eat it, I get lethargic, I lose momentum, I lose energy, I kind of make an excuse of my productivity, you know, don't make the call, don't finish the thing, then you work late. When you work late, you don't get enough sleep, you wake up less refreshed the next morning, and so it spirals. And I think that for us in our environments, for us to be role models for ourselves and others, hold ourselves accountable. Because if we go into conversations with bad energy and bad thought processes, it's like seeds. That's what we start to grow. So we have to dig all that stuff up and plant new habits, plant new seeds. Super important.
You know, kind of touching on that, I'm going to read a comment from actually 2 before I kind of touch on that seed. And the reason for that, there's a wonderful idea that I'm working with a fellow resident that I think would actually fit into this whole conversation. The first one's from Dulce Stein. I believe we must find courage for ourselves, but also have the courage to help others. How can we do both? Ooh.
I love this question so much. Okay, so my response is purpose. My purpose, and I'll put it up here, this will probably be the wrong way around. My purpose is to impact 1 billion people. That's my number. So I will say yes to any situation, anybody in a position who is looking to where we can get access to. What, there's 22 people on the Zoom call. I don't know how many are on Facebook or how many on Instagram, but for me, whatever those numbers are, if you're still here and you're still listening, you know, an hour later, this is amazing. If there's anything, and I'd love to see it in the chat boxes, like what's one thing that you would take away from this conversation and feed to someone else? What's one thing you learned today that you might action on, or what's one takeaway that you got from this that added something to your life? Will you write it down? I'd love to see, because this is me helping me, but it's also me helping you. I'm trying to illustrate with a real example. The fact that you showed up and are engaging, I'm living my purpose.
I got one too now.
Oh, you got it. Did you write it backwards?
Oh, I didn't. No, I didn't. I just
okay, because I had to write mine backwards. You got the right way around. My mirror is a bit weird. So I see some things. Funny, so take responsibility and focus on now. Yes. Okay. So thank you for the people feeding back some of the things they're learning. Purpose. What am I doing this for is important. And it doesn't have to be some giant, you know, universal changing thing. It could just be, my purpose is to show up and be better for my friends and family. Today, my purpose today is just to get out of bed. My purpose today is to put on pants and eat a healthy snack. Like, it could be something so small, but that's how you help you. Telling somebody about it, inspiring them to do it, is helping someone else. So then you've hit 2 for 1. Very powerful. But if you've got a skill, if you have a gift, if you've got a story, if you've got something that's working for you, if you found a way through this time, if you've managed the fires, if you've managed COVID, if you've managed job loss, if you've figured out building a business, if you've done something, if you've gained a skill that you believe that there's something you've learned, empower someone else with a part of that knowledge. It allows you to build a bridge. When you build a bridge, you're helping you and you're helping someone else. And I promise you that it may not always come back from the same place you give it, but I do know it comes back. It always comes back in a very interesting way. Purpose. What's the purpose? Like, you know, help somebody without wanting something from them is probably the most golden key. You can want things from other people. Hey, Haidar, I need this from you as my leader, right? You can want that. It's allowed. but there's something which is like, if I'm going to give something, like, I'm not expecting anybody on this call to give me anything back. I want to be here because this drives my purpose. I've already been given something. I've been given a platform. So what am I going to do with that? I want you to remember that this South African dude that came onto this town hall and talked to me left me feeling motivated, inspired, and courageous. They left me with one piece of wisdom that I'm going to apply that made my life and someone else's life around me that I'm responsible for a little bit better today. That will elevate me. That's the gift I've been given. So what I can give to the situation is sharing some form of knowledge that I believe that I've gained along the way that may help you in the situation. So what is your version? Do you ever ask that question? It's an awesome question. All these are awesome questions. What's that one thing that you would like for you? And then how can you give that to somebody else? Because then you're living out the thing you want and you're providing somebody else with a resource. Don't want anything from that situation, and then watch out how it comes back into your life. It's pretty powerful. It's really, really powerful. There's some kind of a magic. I don't understand it, but it works. That's what I do know.
Dulce also mentions that, and to answer your question about what you're walking away from,
oh, wow.
Walking away with, and it's hope. I am walking away with hope, focus, and strength.
Wow, thank you.
And another question here. Actually, a comment from Elaine Duffy, and thank you for joining today as well. So true about anxiety, and that attracting back things to you is an actual thing. Like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you continue to think negative, it's going to happen no matter what. We're
magnets. We're magnets. I'm going to give you a framing. It's called Towards and Away. It's an NLP. NLP means neuro-linguistic program. Neuro, how our minds are wired. Linguistic, how we speak. It's a body of knowledge that's also based in psychology, which is around that we speak things into existence. But when we speak and we attach energy to it, it actually creates more. Programming is how we've been programmed in our life, programmed by our leaders and our religions and our societies and our parents and our schooling and neurolinguistic programming. Their tagline is it's never too late to have a good childhood, which means it's how we think about our life and what do we do with the things that we've gone through in our life that matter the most. But they've got a framing which is towards what you want or away from what you don't want. That energetic play is where we get motivation in life and where we put our motivation. Okay, so here's an example. Anybody on here like being fit? I like being fit. I take fitness quite seriously. So, and I like endurance fitness. So, an away from motivation. I don't want to be unhealthy. That's my motivation. I don't want to be unhealthy as I'm sitting, eating and drinking all the things that I shouldn't be doing. And so as I get closer to the thing I don't want, being unhealthy, oh, I better get motivated. I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to start working out 5 days a week. I'm going to look great and summer's coming and whatnot. So I'm going to put all that energy in. But as soon as I get far enough away from the thing I don't want, I'm like, I'll take a day off. I'll eat that thing. I'll relax because I'm far enough away. I feel pretty fit. I feel pretty good. I don't feel unhealthy. And then what ends up happening, like a magnet, the thing that attracts us is like, I only get motivated when I get closer to being unhealthy again. Whoa, I better start working again. I better start working out. And so it becomes like a loop. I get close to being unhealthy, get motivated. Get far enough away from it, lose motivation, get motivated again. Towards motivation is what do I want instead? What does fitness look like? What would an accomplish in fitness look like? 1K. I'm going to run 1K. I'm going to run 5. I run 13. I'm going to run 26.2. I'm going to do an Ironman. I'm going to do an ultra marathon, right? Depending on who you are and what gets you going, that's a toward. That's a toward. So one of the things that is a really great thing for you guys to write down here. So really good practice. When you find yourself saying, I don't want this, and I don't like this, and whatever those things are that are really getting you energetically fired up, what do you want instead is the question to ask yourself. Allow your mind to go and create. And if you don't know, then it's a really good awareness that you're focusing on what you don't want a lot more than what you do. Start spending time and carving out time to focus on what you do want. Visualize it. Imagine it. What would it feel like if I got it? Who would I be if I got it? How would I be reacting? Who would I be helping? What would I be doing? What would I be spending? What would I, whatever it is, whatever is going on in your mind, what does that look like when you are going towards what you want? That becomes the new magnet. That becomes the new attractor. That becomes the new courageous step that you take every day. I hope that helps.
No, that was wonderful. There's another, what's up saying? Well,
I just want to say that I love that everybody's still here. We've been going
right?
an hour, like it's still almost full quota. We have more people jump on. I see in Zoom. I don't know what's going on in Facebook and Instagram, but
and they're the same.
I just want to compliment every single person here for sticking with this conversation. I really do. Like there's so many other things you could be doing, but you're here and you're participating and we're learning and we're doing it together. I'm learning in real time too.
And this is the first step to actual growth is this communication and connection is I think back when I was finishing up my master's, I made this link between, and it's going to sound completely funny and weird, but you know how Albert Einstein had E equals mc squared, where energy equals mass times, I don't know how I forgot that. Mass times constant, mass times, that's why I'm a business major and a public administrator. But in my head, it was because it was squared. Basically, it was evolution is equal to multiple connections. So in my head, I was saying he actually had it as a double meaning. Mm-hmm. As the only way to grow is through these multiple connections, or else you'll just remain in that same sphere. If there's no way for you, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So yeah, I thought they said to think out of the box of taking something that's been a staple and then having a twist to it. And I thought that would be that right there was one way of him envisioning evolving and evolution, because we always thought out of the box.
Yeah.
So having these multiple connections with each other, well, that's how we open our mind to this other way of thinking, or else we get stuck in that group think kind of phase where it's monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly. And the thing there is that when we are getting those connections, we got to communicate. And it's also, what is the conversation we drop into those connections that gets us breaking the paradigm and gets us thinking? Like right now, you know, Haidar, creating a conversation around courage for this community, leaning in with these questions is very powerful, because what you've started here is a shift in thinking. What you've started here is a shift in energy. Yes, I'm a participant. I'm one of the nodes in the network. You know, everybody else here that's writing and commenting and contributing, there's so many good things in here. You know, Mia, thank you so much. I see in the chat box here, thank you for contributing all of your thoughts and feelings. You got a lot of amazing things here too. All the other names that I see here who are contributing, all nodes, right? We're all nodes, and we're planting new seeds. Read this, try this. I'm trying this. This works for me. Have a think about that. That starts to get us challenging each other, but also building bridges of knowledge. If we can harness this together and keep talking these things out, because think about where this chat started. Is this the right conversation for the town hall? I don't know, whoever started that conversation, is this still the right conversation for the town hall? Is this a good town hall? You can say no if it's true for you, it's fine. It's okay, I'm not offended. I'm having a great time. But it's like, but if it is a good conversation, you know, then put that out there too, and say, hey, something shifted. We're doing a town hall and we're shifting the conversation. We're shifting how we approach the conversation. So imagine the next town hall, people showing up with more courage, more clarity, more energy, more necessity, more purpose, more honesty, more vulnerability, more directness, more challenge. Now you're suddenly in a whole different town hall. Now you're in a different conversation. You're developing a different community. You're going to see changes that other places won't have. Then those communities are going to lean here and say, wow, what's that thing going on in Hawthorne? What's happening over there? What's in the water over there? What are they doing? How are they getting all that stuff done? How did that conversation get started? And so it starts to spread. Well, come in, come listen, come participate. But no, we don't just talk here. We take action. We do things with our mindset, we do things with our energy, and we take action. We do it with intention, we do it with courage, and we do it with purpose. Now you have a different sort of community than the one that's waiting or chasing, right?
And I think Mia brought up that a good point that thank you for saying that as well, Mia. The true Haidar Awad brought a connection between the community that I've never experienced before with politics. Maybe next town hall we can have a 10-minute meditation. Then we start. We all can use some calm and breathing. You know, that is true. It's the whole to encourage.
How good?
Encourage them to have that courage to speak up, like to not have this fear of, oh, if they're an elected official or they're a politician, we can't voice our opinion. No. Like you said, and you quote, like, you know, quoted Ice Cube, beat down on your local official. I mean, we're meant there to be your punching bag. We're supposed to continue working, and we work for them, and that's why we find pleasure in. So
if I can, I'm going to reframe you real quick there. I'm going to reframe you there, because I also want to support you here, which is, he's not a punching bag. He's a representative. Don't beat down on him. Like, give him responsibility. Give him responsibility. Give him trust. Give him your vulnerability, and then hold him accountable to taking action. And if he doesn't, beat him down. You know what I mean? But give him a shot, because I think that's an old paradigm of thinking too, which is that we have to beat things into people. I think in some way that's true. But how do we do it? Like, what's the new version of beating? Like, let's even not call it beating. What if it's it's a new way of breathing? It's a new way of collaborating.
Oh,
you know, the new way of collaborating. The old way was beating. New way is conversation. New way is honest conversation. New way is public accountability, is transparency. If you're doing, like, there was something we learned with one of our clients. I just want to share this because I think it's really important for this system in society right now, and especially in government systems as well, municipal systems, is that so much of the old system is we only do the right thing when people are watching. The shift we have to make is to do the right thing when no one is watching. Are you the same person when everybody's watching as when no one's watching, or are you different? You don't have to answer it here, but ask that question of yourself. I know for myself, I was like, well, I treat my body differently and I might treat my environment differently. But if someone's watching me, it's like suddenly I'm more responsible and kinder and nicer and more loving even to myself and others. When I'm not, it's like a whole different sort of personality shows up. Transparency is getting consistent between the seen and the unseen. And so we don't need to beat if we're doing the right thing in both places, right? But what that requires is a different level of conversation. Anyway, I don't want to turn that into a whole thing, but I think the reframe is if you put somebody into the power of responsibility, it's their responsibility to do something with what you've asked them to do. And they need to do that well. And if they don't do that well, out, put the next person in that will. Or for you, somebody here step in, you know. But I think that there's a piece here which we can be kinder. We can be kinder, but there's that interesting thing is don't mistake kindness for weakness. Kindness is not a weakness. Kindness is a new way of communicating. Kindness is a new way of leading. That's a very important thing, because we think that we have to beat each other up in order to get things done. Old system, new system. Take accountability, take responsibility, take necessity, take purpose. Anyway, I'll pause there. I don't want to turn it into a whole thing, but
No, I love that new way of looking at it. So from now on, I'm going to be saying it's a new way of collaborating and communicating the direction forward. And if I don't, like you said, then you can start beating up on me.
Hold me accountable. Say, hold me accountable. Hold me accountable. Like,
and that's what we're going to change, is that we're nowhere higher. You're supposed to hold us accountable for what we say, what we do, and we're not above anyone. So if we're communicating one thing and practicing something else, then hold us accountable. Well, at least hold me accountable. I'm willing for that. And this is kind of why I wanted to have this environment. I'm just looking through the feed here.
So great. All these comments are awesome. And I love the support that you already have here, Haidar. It's like people are calling out really good things you've been doing. You've got a community ready here for change. You've got a community ready to step in and do what is necessary to create and elevate together. And I think that's, I mean, what a great platform to begin with.
Right, and it hasn't been seen here in Hawthorne for years. And I think that the community is hungry and thirsty for it. And I'm trying to be that conduit between the old way of doing things and now this new shift into how we envision what a public servant is supposed to be when it comes to communicating and connecting with their constituents and their community. You know, I wanted to also, but before I take in the last couple of questions, because I know it was, we went way over, but it's beautiful. I wanted to let you get the chance to remind everyone through the that's online right now and that's going to be watching it later as we push this out, about the resources from your bonus webpage that residents can download. Apparently, there's a little surprise there.
Yeah. So let me do this real quick, and then I'll also read it out for you guys. Or maybe I already moved it. Did I already move it? No, here it is. Over here, there's a link for you, which is it's our website. So www.becourageousinnovation, all lowercase, one word, .com/bonus, all lowercase. The password prompt is going to be courage, and that is lowercase. And that changes almost on a daily, weekly basis because we get to give talks and run workshops and sessions, and that's our area for people that show up and participate as amazingly as all of you have. I think in there right now, just keep looking back. We'll do something special for this audience too. It may come in a day or two, but just, you know, keep looking back and check it out. It's I think there's something called the altitudes of leadership, which is how to talk through. There's some facilitated videos and some worksheets you can download, and it's all free and available for you, which is how you can lean into your own life to lead differently your life, or if you're leading team or in an organization. There's something about finding your personal purpose. I take you through a guided facilitation on actually working out what your purpose is. You know, today, just asking you some interesting questions. Disclaimer, it will make you work. You have to do the work, but it's there for you. I think there's a best year yet document which allows you to, there's still a few months left in this year. How do you make 2020 your best year yet? How do you make 2021 your best year yet? So there's a facilitated guide there too. And then I think there's some other things as well. So becourageousinnovation.com/bonus, password courage. There'll also be links to other talks that we'll be giving, other workshops and things like that for anybody that's interested. So hope that is helpful. And as I said, it keeps changing. So there's some cool resources and they change quite often. So please feel free to visit there. And it's really there as a resource to you. It's one way we can continue to give back and keep this conversation going, even if we're not together. How powerful is that?
Actually vary. The more we can stay connected through different avenues and different mediums is the best way to go about it. Mia says, I'm in lots of videos. She's
cool.
Before I kind of wrap up this segment, and Kyle, again, thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy, and the wealth of knowledge that you have and you've given, at least just the moment of time you've blessed us with today, I greatly appreciate it. I'm excited to see where our paths will cross and continue. I know especially after November, it's going to be a very unique opportunity for both of us.
When I'm mayor and we cross paths again, that's how the sentence goes now. When I'm mayor.
Put that in there, self-fulfilling prophecy. There is one, actually, here's the quote before I ask that, before I answer this one question. The quote from, because I was asking Elaine Duffy what the quote was she has on her classroom door from C.S. Lewis, and it was, integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. And she has her students look at that every day as they walk into her class. So
I love that. She probably said it better than I did. And what did she say? She called that integrity, right?
The quote for is, integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching.
If every single person in the world just operated from that on a daily basis, could you imagine how different the world would be right now? Could you just imagine that? Could you imagine that? I mean, that's one simple goal, but that's a lifetime of work just in that quote. But it's true. It's true. If we could really show up and be as good, when no one's watching as when everybody is watching, that is integrity. I think that's where we should be elevating to as human beings. And I think we just got super, super, super distracted. We've got super distracted by so many unnecessary things. And we're putting our attention on the wrong things we're getting distracted off purpose. We're getting distracted off community building. We're getting distracted off connectivity. We're being distracted into polarity. We're being distracted to this versus that. These sort of interesting polarity battles. And that's a dividing kind of a mindset. And so it's, how do we, polarity is important in science. It is, like, it helps, opposites attract and things like that. But at the same time, what are all those things for? And are we doing it for the right reasons? Anyway, I don't mean to go on a diatribe there. It's just, I think it's I think it's so powerful the way what she just offered up there.
The last question, I kind of want to wrap up this portion, and that's why I left to the very end. So Seymour Pretterman, that's why I kind of left that your question towards the very end, and I think it's a good way for myself and you, Kyle, to collaborate right now and have this conversation on his particular question. And it was, Haidar, as being an elected official, are you in the train of thought of being in the mindset of legislating laws to help people, or removing laws so that people can be free to pursue opportunities? That's a very,
wow.
It's a very unique aspect, a very unique question to even ask an elected official, because usually it's kind of upholding that one way of thinking, and kind of having their ideology dictate how everyone else should be living their day-to-day lives. For me, and the reason why I kind of brought individuals like yourself, Kyle, and all the other guest speakers, is I'm more in the mindset of legislating laws to help remove those barriers so that you can pursue those opportunities. So often we see these walls being built, or these these opportunities being taken away, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't, and it's because there are certain individuals that aren't taking the time to communicate with their community to see, is this piece of legislation actually either promoting them to pursue different opportunities, or is it restricting them from actually getting what they need? And it's all centered around growth and eliminating the barriers. We have enough of that as it is, and to kind of shed that weight is the best way to grow. And so, Kyle, what do you think of the time you spent, going around the world and giving these talks? Someone like me as an elected official, to ensure that I keep promoting and keep progressing forward on letting individuals pursue their opportunities, but by removing laws and barriers. I
was actually drawing something here right now. I'm trying to doodle at the same time because I had this thought, but I don't have a graphic, which is I think there's some science on this. There's science and research on political structures and political systems, not just political systems, but it's the hierarchy of control and the hierarchy of systems. I'm probably doing a terrible job of this. This is meant to be like a pyramid effect. Oh, you can't even see because of the green screen. It's meant to be like a pyramid effect. Basically, if you can imagine, someone at the top, and then it goes down a row and it goes down a row, and it becomes like, just like a sort of a pyramiding effect, versus a whole bunch of circles in a circle. And if you say to somebody, you say, okay, so where is in a hierarchical system versus in like an ecosystem-based system, which is like more the circular one, you would ask somebody, where's the power in the pyramid? And they would say, well, it's at the top. It's generally where they go. Like they say, it's at the top. But if you have all these circles that look very similar in a circular system, and you say, okay, so where's the leader here? And they would go like, well, I don't know. It's like, it could be anywhere. It could be any one of those. I think the question is powerful. When you remove laws to create more sense of freedom and permission for everybody, what you're really doing is you handing a lot of responsibility to the ecosystem to say, you're really good at operating as an ecosystem. So here's autonomy to further yourself as an ecosystem. You know how to ebb and flow. You know how to look out for each other. You know how to stay connected to each other. You know how to support each other. If someone's kind of getting a little out of control, the ecosystem can help pull that back together and get balance. And you know how to expand and progress together. What we're moving from and to is like this idea of the hierarchical top-down central hub spoke kind of models of structure and power, whatever those names are that we give them to in political terms. But I think where we're moving to, because of the advent of tech and social connectivity and network effects and all those kinds of things, is that we actually have a huge amount of power here. There was, we can gather, we can form. This information is going out to so many people. It's becoming harder and harder to regulate the conversations we want to have. So what that actually puts in our hands is way more responsibility to do the right thing. It is to start coming together to collaborate. And I think that my approach to the idea of laws is that, being from South Africa and being grown up in nature, I always, to me, nature's like the law that I follow. I mean, of course, I live in countries and we have to follow laws and pay our taxes and do all that good stuff. We have to follow the things that we've created as society. But if I really am going to look to the law, I look to Earth and I look to nature as the law, because there is no other system on this planet that has figured out how to work in harmony with so much diversity and so much difference. And that the system only works when every part of the system is in balance with each other. And what we've done is we've gone into that system and we've messed up the balance, and now the system is out of whack. Now that's giving us a lot of credibility to say it, but what it's doing is it's regulating now. It's going, oh, well, these are the conditions and I'm going to regulate. Take that as a metaphor for legislative power. I think when the ecosystem can demonstrate that the ecosystem can operate in harmony with each other, I would imagine that the laws are going to start moving more towards autonomy and freedom. As long as we don't, laws are going to remain, well, somebody has to kind of keep the kids in line. Someone has to herd the cats. Somebody has to corral the chickens. Whatever those metaphors are, because they're getting out of control. It's out of control, and we don't treat each other equal. We're not after all ships rise together. And so I think that it's an interesting experiment, because do you give all those laws and then see what the system does and hope it doesn't destroy itself, and actually go like, hey, wait, we've got freedom here. We've got autonomy. We've got a lot. We've got leaders that are giving us the permission to step up and be leaders too. Leaders causing leaders. Leaders developing leaders. Giving permission to others to say, get in and role model and lead. I believe that the laws will pass when we can start to demonstrate, but I don't mean be a compliant society that just yes sir, no sir, and does everything we're told. I'm saying that we're banding together to do things for the right reason. Like what's happening around the world right now. We're coming together on really important long-term issues that are way out of date of having been addressed. And we're stepping up and we're making change together. So the legislation that's going to pass now is because the community and the ecosystem have stepped up to change those laws. So that is an answer to that question, which is, what comes first? Start demonstrating you're unhappy with the current laws. Start demonstrating that you're happier when everybody gets to win together, and that we can make this a better system together. And then I think the laws will change in our favor. That would be my response. And again, I'm not a politician. You know better than I do, Haidar, of how complicated this is. But as somebody who goes in to do systemic change in organizations where there are laws, cultures, behaviors, rituals, the way we change it is when the culture starts to demonstrate that it's responsible enough to handle the changes that it's asking for.
And you're absolutely right, because we're never in the same position forever. We come and go, but as long as you kind of, like you said, create that environment where that autonomy is self-sustaining, that's the goal. You want it to be a point where the community is now self-sustaining itself, and it's built on this pyramid scheme, the pyramid concept. But and you're right, they always tend to look at the very top as the point of power, but they tend to forget, if you look at the top, well, the top is nothing if the foundation is broken. It'll start to crumble.
Yeah.
So really, it's at the base, and that's the community. And like you said, it's all about that ecosystem all coming together. And that's what I'm trying to strive for, and having this kind of open dialogue concept and this new way of thinking. As some of the residents here mentioned, it's a unique, this is the first time we've had, a politics or an elected official kind of demonstrate this kind of conversation, because it's not normal. It really isn't. And that's what I'm here to do, is to change that structure and that old way of thinking in the old system into something more free-flowing, breathable, so we can not get so stuck in our old ways of thinking. This is such a beautiful conversation. It's like one of my favorite town halls, just because it's been a little different than the stuffy kind of traditional town halls, which are still very important, but it's always nice to go at the more of a community aspect and more of a growth conversation, which then can also lead into the proper way of serving the community. Once you encourage them to be courageous in themselves, to promote themselves, to ask those kind of questions that might be, a little scary to ask, or they might be shy themselves from addressing. No, that's not the case. I want to build them to where they can bring out anything in their mind to speak up, and then hold myself and other individuals accountable to reaching that goal that they want from us.
Can I build on that for a second? I want to plant one seed, and I think I might not get this perfect, but I think I might get in the proximity of it. But you guys know the clothing brand Patagonia, right? I'm sure you know that brand. People know the brand Patagonia. I might be saying it with the wrong accent, but is when they do their meetings internally, one of the things when they get together with their leadership meetings, or like these town hall meetings, they start the meeting saying, okay, so what is it that we're doing today to help the environment? And that's the tone. And so there's something that could be very interesting here to because this was a small but mighty act of courage of what you've done today. And I think that it seems like, based on all the feedback, it's been a real great benefit. And shifted the conversation to the audience here. And if so, put a yes somewhere, just put a yes, and give Haidar a high five on this one, because it just took a really big act of courage to do this. But what if you started each town hall and figure out what that question is, where you set the elevation at the right altitude? Okay, it's not are we coming in to talk about these problems. It's like, what are we doing today to elevate the Hawthorne community? I don't know. Let's, call it something like that. What are we doing today to, and when you start a conversation on that level, it's very interesting because that's your baseline. And there's another quote, I forget who said it, but we are only as strong as our weakest link. And in our world, when we facilitate a lot of breakthrough work and we're doing a lot of team building work, a way we frame that is to say that any audience in any situation will always recalibrate to the lowest common denominator. What that means is think of any party you've been to, think of any family situation, any gathering, whatever the lowest bar of energy is, if there's somebody who has a voice, the room will calibrate down to that lowest form of energy because the goal is to try to capture that person and raise them up. But it doesn't always work that way. So a lot of conversations in public forum, whether they in government or in corporations or in wherever they are, is we tend to drop down to a very low altitude baseline energetically because we want to capture the person who's not having the best time and try and elevate them up. And that can sometimes keep us at a very low level conversation vibrationally, meaning like, are we working on the right work? Are we talking about the right stuff? Are we focusing on the right problem? Or are we focusing on the right solution? And so by forcing oneself to elevate up and start at a higher altitude, you automatically change the vibration of the conversation. It's exactly what happened here today. It's exactly what happened here today. We talked about courage. That's how we started it. That's been the thread. A small act of courage. Small act of courage starts a big conversation. So what's that conversation that each of you who are listening here, go home and start a conversation. Just start a conversation. Ask a question. Elevate the conversation up. If you're at the next dinner party, even if people go, just say, no, like really, like put a conversation on the table. What would it look like if we achieved this? What would life look like here? What's a big thing we could do? What could we all do to come together to think of this? You'll be surprised about what that sparks. You really will be surprised. So I don't know, Haidar, it might be a thing. It might be a way to carry something on, but how do you start at the elevation that keeps this frequency going for you and for this community? That's a really interesting one. Maybe ask the community to submit what would be a great way to set climate for each of these town halls.
Yeah, that's just a very good. I'm going to practice at the very next one, especially all my office hours too. Is have that first question be presented, and then having the community tailor it to that. I think that's a very wonderful idea to kind of move forward on with that. It's going to be actually interesting and fun to actually see play through. Yeah.
Small act of courage.
Right. Well, Kyle, I wanted to thank you for spending so much time with us today, and for giving us this wealth of knowledge, especially the websites. I had some residents here saying how they're going to be emailing the workbook. Apparently, there's a workbook on the website you just gave out.
Great. Yes.
They're going to be emailing it to all their coworkers and family. They found it so well put together and informative that I'm like, wow. You've struck a chord with a lot of the members here, and it's funny. It's quite unique how we saw how the conversation at the beginning of the town hall go from the beginning of wait, what does this have to do with the politics and things of that nature, to where now everyone's like, we get it now. They completely understand the merit behind this kind of conversation, and it's to instill more community engagement. It's to instill that courage to have them come out more and take charge of the community that they live in. And before I kind of wrap up and let you go, because I know you're very busy, Friedrich Nietzsche, he had a lot of wonderful quotes, and the one that kind of stuck with what we were presenting today was, the surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. And that's the whole concept of everything. You do not want to have this group think linear line of thinking. You'll never progress. It does not work, and you can't grow from it. And everything that you talked about today is all centered around self-growth and how to empower yourself to create that change, not only within yourself, but around you. So if you don't do that within yourself first, you won't see it outside.
That's right.
And with that, I kind of want you to, final thoughts to the community. Again, go over everything where they can get, because they're asking how to get in contact with the resources you have again, and website and everything like that. So please, thank you again. And then shout out to the residents for me.
I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for having me here, for welcoming me into your home, into your space, into your town, and for tuning in, for participating as you have. Again, I celebrate you. I celebrate that you're looking for ways forward. I hope something here inspired you. If it did, post it on social, send it here, send it to Haidar, stick it up on email, wherever. You can get me on any of the social platforms, mainly Instagram and Facebook. That's just at my name, Kyle Hermans. That website again is becourageousinnovation.com. The resource would just be a /bonus, all lowercase. The password is courage, because this was all about courage. And in there is going to be changing assets and things like that. So, but I'm sure there's going to be some things on the recording here, and you can always get in touch with Haidar's office. If anything changes, I will always link to them, and maybe something will go out in the town hall for a future date. But thank you for allowing me here. Thank you for allowing me to live out my purpose. I really appreciate it. This is amazing for me. This is me doing my life's work. And Haidar, thank you so much. And Jeremy, thank you so much. And to your team, Haidar, that helped put all this together and get us prepared. I'm very, very grateful. And you know what to do. 60 days. Gotta go out and vote. Let's make this guy mayor. We can do it, right? We can do it. Let's go make him mayor and then hold him accountable. It's a nice way to throw him.
Get him in there so that we can hold him accountable.
Get him in there so we can make change together. That's the biggest thing here. And just remember, small acts of daily courage. What does the situation today need courage in right now? Ask yourself that. How can I bring courage here? How can I bring courage to this decision? How can I bring courage to my day? Ask yourself that and watch your life shift. Honestly, thank you so much, Haidar. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. Stay well. Sending you all health, happiness, abundance, and positivity.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate everything you've done, and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. I know I'll continue to feel it because the energy is strong. So look, if we can work together to spread that throughout the years, I'm right there with you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Bye, Kyle. Thank you so much. Whew. Everyone, well, thank you for joining for this today, for the town hall. I am going to go through an update and let's see, to make sure on a few new things, especially answer some questions here that you guys have. Let me see here. I do have to, let's see, get my presentation up and running. So if you guys can, let me see. I'll be back on about 5 to 10 minutes to get my presentations up and running, and then we'll. There's a few presentations I want to show and some graphs. So and then Lisa Haley, if you're still online, please. I do want to talk about a avocado tree. The avocado tree situation happening, and I think it's a very wonderful idea to have that transport and get that fixed. So please. Stay on, bear with me, and actually, and before I kind of log out, just for a few minutes to get everything else ready for the other half of the town hall, and to let you guys take a little breather. There is a part of something I want to share on screen. Let's see if I can get that up real quick. Let's see. Just a few things I want to leave before I hop off and hop back on. Is again, for those that are looking for COVID testing and an update for that, again, you can register at lhi.care /COVID testing, and the phone number is 888-634-1123. Obtain a patient ID and then complete the registration, and then you head on to testing.haidarhawthorne.com to get a walk-in pass. And again, it's as many times as you want to as many times as you want to get signed up. Let's see, for the walk-in. I'm reading the comments at the same time. Mia, I see that you have at 8 o'clock. You know what? Then I'll get on at 7:50 just to make sure I get that cutoff for you, Mia, and make sure I get at least 10 minutes of your time to answer any of the questions that you might have. And this way we'll get right back to it. Yeah, of course. No. Thank you for willing to stay on. Martha, the same as well. So 10-minute break for everyone, then we'll jump back on for a longer discussion. And this way I can turn the AC. And I think the next slide, if we have any, let's see. Again, there's a website. So for job resources, and I'm going to be sharing this within the next, after our break. I had Jan Vogel, the CEO of the South Bay Workers Investment Board, as well as Patricia Donaldson, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, to discuss about job opportunities and growth and how we can re-stimulate and regrow our social, our economic status here in the city of Hawthorne, especially when it comes to COVID. Here are the phone numbers and contacts and addresses as well. What's very unique is that on the South Bay Web Investment Board, Jan Vogel mentioned about there's different ways of job opportunities for those that are seeking jobs where they can jump on and apply to be put onto a list. At the same time, there's ample amount of funding for retraining purposes for businesses that are looking for new employees, and that is subsidized by the state. And he has programs that subsidize individuals' pays for 6 months, even up to a year. It's phenomenal. It's great. There's it addresses those that it helps those that are both looking for a job or in a job already and want to, change or learn a new trade, a new trait, wherever the case might be. And it's also meant for teens as well. So it helps a wide range of individuals. There's resources for retraining. There's just so many resources available that I don't believe a lot of residents knew about. And so with the next 10 minutes, I'm going to jump on there and kind of go over what was mentioned at the last town hall with these two individuals. A wealth of resources, again, from the South Bay WIP for job training, community college, not loans. It was a free community college resources as well, and a whole lot of other things that we're going to go over in the next 10 minutes. Again, there's here are some service requests. I have the Good Neighbors Meal Project I'm going to be touching on in about 10 minutes as well, because we are shifting it a little bit differently. It's going to be more of a Good Neighbors Kitchen, and Dulce, thank you for that initiative, and I'll speak on that in a few minutes as well. The homeless assistant request, please fill that out if you have anyone that's in need, so we can get them the right resources as soon as we can. Also reporting illegal dumping and reporting fireworks. I'm here working, so any problem that it comes up, I'm trying to find a solution for and create this kind of connection, and then have our conversation centered around it. And any questions, of course, you can always email me, send me a call or text. Again, it has been quite a lot coming in, and I try to get to every single one as quickly and as soon as possible. And again, on all my social media platforms, please take advantage of the appointment scheduling, where you can set 15, 30 minutes or different kind of services that I provide. I block off those times for these appointments. So please, when you go on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see book now, or Twitter or on my website, click it, and then you'll see all the available time slots, and then book an appointment. Doesn't matter what the topic is about, or if you just want to say hello. I've committed 4 hours to 6 hours each day, and the schedule's on there as well, to get a hold of me. Let's see. So again, just so I can make sure I'm back for Mia, I'm going to copy these last questions here. And for everyone else that asked for Martha and Cindy, can you please hold those questions? I'm going to take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then I'll be jumping right back on to the same Zoom link and Facebook and Instagram live feeds. So again, here are my office hours and bi-monthly virtual town hall meetings, and I'll see you guys 7:50. So I'll be back on and see you guys soon.